betrayed by the sister all adored, until the Count exposed the farce. Yet behind the bright walls and flowing banners, secrets moved quietly like whispers in the dark. Princess Elara walked through the halls of her home, her hand brushing the cool stone of the walls. She smiled politely at the courtiers, nodding to the ladies-in-waiting and the guards, but her heart felt heavy. Everyone in Urindor loved her younger sister, Lady Selene. Selene had the kind of beauty that made people pause and admire her. Her hair was the color of midnight, her eyes a shining silver, and her laughter could light the grand hall like the sun. People said Selene was kind and clever, but Elara had learned to see through the smooth words. Beneath her sister's charm, there was something dangerous, a hunger for power that no one noticed but Elara. The palace was full of activity that morning. Servants rushed along the corridors, carrying trays of fresh bread and fruit. Knights polished their armor, and the royal musicians tuned their instruments in preparation for the day's banquet. Elara's heart ached with a quiet longing as she walked past the great mirrors of the hall. She saw herself reflected back, fair, composed, but overshadowed by the brilliance of Selene. "You look troubled, Elara," a gentle voice said behind her. It was Lady Marin, one of her oldest friends and a confidant. "The banquet will be beautiful, but you must not let your thoughts cloud your heart." Elara smiled faintly. "It is not the banquet I fear, Marin, it is what comes after it." Marin frowned. "After, you speak as if something dark waits in the shadows." "Perhaps it does," Elara whispered. She did not want to say more, fearing that even Marin might not understand. Meanwhile, Selene moved through the palace with a practiced grace. She wore a gown of silver silk, embroidered with tiny threads of sapphire that shimmered like stars. She laughed at the courtiers' jokes and bowed to the nobles who praised her wit. But in her eyes, there was a glimmer of calculation. Every smile was measured, every word chosen to shape the minds of those who adored her. Elara watched from a distance, hiding behind the carved pillars of the hall. She had learned to watch Selene closely. She had seen the way her sister's influence grew, how she quietly turned the court against Elara with small, almost invisible acts. A misplaced word, a subtle sneer, a whispered doubt. No one else seemed to notice, but Elara felt it like a chill in her bones. The day passed with the usual ceremonies. The royal family met with ambassadors, signed scrolls, and made appearances in the gardens. Yet Elara could not shake the feeling that a storm was gathering. The wind whispered through the high towers and carried the scent of frost that did not belong to winter. The night-blooming flowers in the royal garden had begun to wither under the strange frost, and no gardener could explain it. It was as if the palace itself knew of the hidden danger. That evening, the banquet began. The great hall glowed with hundreds of candles, their flames dancing on the golden walls. Music floated through the air as knights and ladies filled the tables. Elara sat at her place, her hands folded, her mind restless. She caught Selene's gaze across the room. Selene's smile was perfect, almost cruel in its calmness. Elara felt a flicker of fear, and then it happened. Elara noticed a figure slip through the shadows near the far corner of the hall. It was a man she had never seen before. He was tall, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to hold a storm. He wore the uniform of a visiting count, but there was something about him that made Elara's heart beat faster. He moved with quiet confidence, observing the room as though he could see every hidden secret. Selene noticed him too, and her smile faltered for just a moment. She stepped closer to a group of nobles, speaking to them with a voice that was sweet and measured. But the Count's gaze was fixed on Elara. She felt his eyes like a weight on her soul, both strange and comforting. After the banquet, the guests departed, leaving the royal family in the quiet of the palace. Elara wandered into the garden, seeking the cool night air and the comfort of solitude. The moon hung low, its silver light spilling over the frozen flowers. The frost glimmered like tiny crystals on the petals, unnatural and cold. And then Alara heard it, a whisper, soft and deliberate. She froze, straining to hear. It came from the shadowed hedges near the fountain. She stepped closer, her heart pounding, and saw Selene speaking to someone hidden in the dark. "And soon she will have no choice but to step aside," Selene said, her voice smooth, confident. "The kingdom will be mine. Everything she dreams of will fall from her hands." Alara's breath caught. She could not see the other figure clearly, but the words were enough. Selene was plotting, scheming against her in ways she had feared but never confirmed. The world she knew, the palace, the court, her family, was slipping through her fingers. A twig snapped under her foot. Selene froze. The hidden figure disappeared into the shadows. Alara stepped back, her mind racing. She had overheard enough to know that danger was real, closer than she had imagined. Yet she could not act yet. She had to be careful. One wrong move, and the entire kingdom could fall into Selene's hands. Days passed, and the tension in the palace grew. Alara tried to maintain her composure, attending councils and ceremonies, smiling when necessary but always watching. She noticed the subtle ways Selene manipulated the court. She saw nobles whispering and casting sly glances, servants moving with nervous steps, and friends avoiding her eyes. The court adored Selene, and Alara realized that she had to find a way to survive without losing herself in fear or anger. It was then that Count Kalen approached her. He appeared in the gardens one evening, standing in the moonlight, tall and imposing, yet his voice was gentle. "You are Princess Alara, are you not?" he asked, his silver eyes searching hers. "Yes," she said cautiously. "And you are the count who arrived for the banquet." "I am," he replied. "But I am more than a guest if you are willing to see it." "I know what is happening here, Princess. I know about the whispers, the plots, the danger that moves through these halls." Alara's heart skipped. She had been careful, hiding her fears from everyone, yet here was a stranger who knew. "Why would you tell me this?" she asked. "Because the truth cannot be ignored," Kalen said, "and because sometimes the one who seems strongest can be weakest in ways they do not see. You are not as alone as you feel." Alara studied him, unsure whether to trust him. But there was a sincerity in his gaze that she could not deny. She decided to listen. Kalen spoke of powers and curses that lurked behind the nobility, of old magic that lingered in the stones of the palace, and of a darkness that could feed on envy and ambition. He spoke in careful words, never frightening, yet every sentence made her pulse quicken. She realized that Selene's ambitions were not just personal, they were dangerous, touching forces beyond human understanding. And then Kalen warned her. "Trust must be careful, Princess. There are eyes everywhere, and some betrayals come not from strangers but from those closest to your heart." Alara's stomach tightened. She thought of her parents, of the court, and of Selene. The Count's words were a shadow over the light she tried to hold. Yet in that shadow there was also hope. Perhaps she could find allies, perhaps she could learn to protect herself, perhaps even reclaim the balance that Selene had begun to tip. That night, as the moon rose high and the palace slept, Alara sat alone in her chambers. She thought of the withering flowers, the whispers in the garden, and the Count's warning. Her heart ached with fear, yet it also stirred with determination. She would not be a pawn. She would not be a victim. She would find a way to confront the darkness, even if she had to walk through it alone. And yet deep inside, a quiet, forbidden curiosity took root. About the Count, about the dangers he spoke of, about the power that Selene sought. It was a dangerous thought, but it was impossible to banish. As the first light of dawn touched the palace, Alara made a silent vow. She would not let Selene win, and she would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. But somewhere in the shadows, Selene's laughter echoed, a soft, cruel sound that promised that the game had only just begun. The frost still lingered in the royal garden, a cold reminder that danger was near, and that the shadows behind the crown were watching, waiting and ready to strike. Alara knew this was only the beginning. The palace of Urindor had grown quieter after the frost touched the royal gardens. Nights were longer, and shadows seemed to linger longer in the corridors than they should. Princess Ilara moved carefully through her chambers, her mind filled with unease. Seleni's plotting haunted her, and the words she had overheard in the garden returned again and again. "The kingdom will be mine. Everything she dreams of will fall from her hands." The Count, Kalen, had become a presence she could not ignore. Each time he appeared in the gardens or near the palace walls, his dark eyes seemed to see more than she dared to reveal. He did not move with the arrogance of the court nobles, nor did he speak with the false sweetness that Selene used to charm the room. His words were direct, almost like a mirror, reflecting her fears and her hidden strength. "Ilara," he said one evening as she wandered beneath the moonlit colonnade, "you carry the weight of this court on your shoulders, yet you fear its shadows. Do you not see that some shadows can guide you rather than destroy you?" Ilara stopped, staring at him. "And if they betray me?" she asked. "If even the shadows turn against me?" Kalen smiled faintly, a shadow of sadness in his expression. "Then you must be ready to stand alone, but standing alone is not weakness. Sometimes it is the only way to find the truth." She wanted to believe him, yet the palace had taught her caution. Trust was dangerous. People whispered behind every door, smiled at her only to hide their disdain. And Selene was everywhere, flawless and untouchable. That night, Ilara could not sleep. She walked to the window of her chambers and looked out over the gardens. The frost remained, but she noticed something new, a faint glow among the withered flowers. She approached the garden silently and found small orbs of light, floating like tiny stars among the petals. They pulsed softly as if alive, and she could feel a strange warmth in their presence. Kalen appeared behind her, stepping lightly over the frost. "Do you see?" he asked, gesturing to the glowing lights. "The palace is older than it seems. Magic has not left these stones, and sometimes it watches, waiting for those brave enough to notice it." Ilara shivered. "Is it dangerous?" "It can be," he admitted. "But it can also protect. Magic is neither good nor evil, it is a reflection of those who use it. And the heart you carry, princess, is not weak. It is strong, though untested." Their hands brushed as she turned to leave. Ilara felt a jolt of surprise, a strange warmth spreading through her chest. She pulled away quickly, not daring to meet his eyes. Days passed, and Kalen's presence became both a comfort and a puzzle. He spoke of Selene's ambitions carefully, never revealing everything, yet giving Ilara the pieces she needed to see the danger clearly. Selene's schemes were not just about envy or the throne. They involved something darker, a hidden pact with powers the court did not understand. Ilara learned to listen more closely, to watch more carefully. She began noticing Selene's subtle manipulations. The way the nobles flinched at her questions, the way servants whispered in corners, the way Selene's silver eyes seemed to follow her with faint amusement. And in each moment, Kalen was there, guiding, warning, yet never forcing. One evening, as the palace slept under a full moon, Kalen led Ilara to the library. It was a forgotten wing, dusty and quiet, filled with old scrolls and books that had not been touched in decades. The scent of parchment and ink filled the air. "There is knowledge here that the crown forgot," Kalen said softly. "Secrets about the royal line, about powers that move through Urindor, about curses and protections that have been in place for centuries." Ilara ran her fingers over the spines of the books. "Why show me this?" she asked. "What does it have to do with Selene?" "Everything," Kalen replied. "She does not know all that lies in these walls, and if you learn it, if you use it carefully, you may prevent the shadow from consuming the kingdom." Ilara nodded, determination hardening in her chest. She spent nights in the library, reading by candlelight, learning about the old ways, about charms and wards, about histories of envy and betrayal that had shaped Urindor. Kalen stayed close, sometimes guiding her hands, sometimes simply watching. Each moment she felt a strange pull toward him, a connection that she could not name yet could not ignore. One night, Kaelin handed her a small scroll wrapped in silver ribbon. "This is for you," he said. "It is a warning but also a key. Do not lose it." Alara took it carefully. The scroll contained a message in a script she did not recognize, but beneath the letters was a map of the palace, hidden chambers, secret passages, and symbols marking places of power. Her pulse quickened. This knowledge was dangerous, yet it gave her hope. As she left the library, she heard a soft laugh echo through the corridors. It was Selene. "Enjoying your little secrets, sister." Selene's voice was calm, almost teasing but laced with threat. "You think you are clever, learning what you do not understand. But power without skill is only a shadow waiting to fall." Alara did not respond. She moved silently, clutching the scroll. She could feel Selene's gaze like a knife, but she refused to falter. The following days were tense. Selene began to act with more boldness, planting seeds of doubt among the court about Alara's loyalty and judgment. Alara, with Kaelin's guidance, countered quietly, gaining small allies who had also noticed Selene's manipulations. She realized that winning the people's trust would require more than truth. It would require patience, courage, and cleverness. One evening, Kaelin invited her to the gardens once again. The frost had returned, but the glowing orb still lingered among the petals. He took her hand, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. "Alara," he said softly, "there is more at play than ambition or envy. The darkness that seeks to claim Selene's heart, it will not rest, and it will not stop with her. You must prepare for what comes next, because the kingdom itself may hang in the balance." Alara's chest tightened. "I am afraid," she admitted. "Afraid of failing, of losing everything, of losing myself." Kaelin's eyes softened. "Fear is not weakness. It is proof that you care. But courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite it." Her heart beat faster. She wanted to trust him, to believe that together they could face the growing threat. Yet there was a part of her that wondered if he, too, had secrets. As they spoke, a shadow moved among the flowers. Alara's eyes widened as she realized someone was watching them. Kaelin's hand went to the hilt of his sword, but the figure remained hidden. "Alara," he said quietly, "be ready. The eyes that watch us are not mere servants. They belong to someone who knows the palace better than either of us, and Selene may not be the only danger." Alara felt a shiver of fear and excitement. Her life had changed. She was no longer a passive princess, merely waiting for fate to unfold. She was part of a game far older and more dangerous than she had imagined, a game of shadows, secrets, and power. The next day, Selene confronted her openly in the courtyard. The court watched, murmuring at the tension between the sisters. "You hide behind shadows, Alara," Selene said, her voice cold and clear. "You think secrets will protect you, but they will only make you weak. The court knows who is truly fit to rule, and it is not you." Alara met her gaze, steady and firm. "I may be learning in shadows, Selene, but it is not weakness to prepare, and the court may see more than you imagine." Selene's lips curved into a small, dangerous smile. "We shall see, sister, we shall see." That night, Alara returned to her chambers, exhausted yet determined. Kaelin waited, his presence a calm reassurance. He handed her a small vial of silver liquid. "This is protection," he explained. "Not from people, but from the forces that Selene has chosen to bind to her will. Use it wisely and trust only what you see and feel in your heart." Alara nodded, holding the vial close. She felt both fear and hope. The Count had drawn her into his web of knowledge and mystery, and she could not deny the thrill of learning, of understanding, of feeling capable for the first time in her life. Yet deep inside, she wondered what Selene would do next. The frost in the gardens, the shadows in the halls, the whispers in the night, all pointed to one truth: the struggle was only beginning. Alara sat by her window as the moon rose high. She opened the scroll Kaelin had given her, and studied the hidden passages and symbols. She realized that surviving Seleni's schemes would require courage, cleverness, and perhaps even a willingness to face the darkness within herself. And as the night deepened, a single thought echoed in her mind. Trust Kaelin, trust herself, and be ready for the storm that was coming. Because Seleni's game had only begun, and Alara could no longer afford to stand in the shadows. The nights in Urindor were longer than ever, heavy with frost and whispers. Princess Alara could feel the weight of her responsibilities pressing down on her like the stones of the palace walls. She had learned much from Count Kaelin, but every new piece of knowledge revealed how little she truly understood. Seleni's schemes were deeper and more dangerous than she had imagined, reaching into corners of the court and palace that even Alara had never entered. One evening, Kaelin appeared at her chambers without knocking. He stood in the doorway, tall and calm, his dark eyes reflecting the flickering candlelight. "Alara," he said softly, "it is time. You cannot learn everything within these walls. Some truths require you to leave the palace and see the world as it truly is." Alara hesitated. "Leave the palace, but Selene, what if she finds me?" "That is why I will go with you," Kaelin said. "We must uncover the source of the darkness she seeks to control. Only then can we protect the kingdom." For the first time, Alara felt a mix of fear and excitement. She had spent her life in careful routines, behind the palace walls, trying to avoid mistakes. Now she was being asked to step into the unknown, to confront danger head-on. And yet, Kaelin's presence made her feel less alone. They left the palace under the cover of night. The moon cast silver light over the frozen gardens as they slipped through hidden passages marked on the scroll Kaelin had given her. The air was crisp, and every sound, the crunch of frost underfoot, the whisper of the wind, seemed amplified. Alara's heart pounded, both from fear and anticipation. Their journey led them to the Forest of Whispers, a place older than the kingdom itself. The trees were massive, their branches twisted and dark, blocking most of the moonlight. Legends said that spirits of past kings and queens lingered there, watching and guiding those brave enough to enter. Kaelin stopped and looked at her. "Here, you will face more than danger from others," he said. "The forest tests the heart. It shows you your fears, your doubts, even your hidden desires. You must be strong, Alara." She nodded, swallowing her fear. They stepped into the forest together, moving carefully through the shadows. Strange lights flickered in the distance, dancing like fireflies. The wind carried faint voices, almost like whispers of encouragement or warnings. Hours passed, and Alara began to feel the forest's strange pull on her mind. She saw visions, her parents disappointed, the court turning against her, Selene laughing while the kingdom fell. She saw herself alone, powerless, a shadow of the princess she wished to be. Each vision made her heart ache, yet she continued to walk forward, gripping Kaelin's hand for strength. Finally, they reached a small clearing. In the center stood a stone pedestal, covered in frost and moss. On it lay an ancient mirror, its surface reflecting not only their faces but also the faint glow of the forest around them. Kaelin turned to her. "The mirror of the heart," he whispered. "It shows the truth of who you are. Look carefully, Alara, and do not look away." Alara stepped forward and gazed into the mirror. At first she saw only herself, tired and frightened, but slowly the reflection changed. She saw her own courage, her determination, the kindness and wisdom that Selene's shadow had made her doubt. She also saw her anger, her fear, and her longing for approval. Tears filled her eyes. "It shows everything," she whispered. Kaelin nodded. "You must accept all of it. The light and the shadow. Only then will you be ready to face Selene and the forces that follow her." Alara took a deep breath. She closed her eyes, feeling the forest's energy around her. Slowly, she let go of her fear, acknowledging it without letting it control her. She embraced her anger, but promised herself she would not let it consume her. She accepted her longing for love and connection, even if it made her vulnerable. When she opened her eyes, the mirror reflected not only herself but a faint glow of strength that seemed to radiate from her very being. Kaelin's gaze softened, and he placed a hand over hers. "You are ready," he said. "The journey back will test you further, but the forest has given you what you need to survive and fight." Their return to the palace was quiet, yet every shadow seemed sharper, every sound more deliberate. Alara felt the weight of the kingdom on her shoulders, but now it felt lighter because she had discovered strength she did not know she possessed. Selene, of course, had not been idle. The moment they returned, she confronted Alara in the council chamber, her eyes shining with cunning. "You have been gone long, sister," Selene said, her voice calm but dangerous. "Did you find wisdom among the trees, or merely shadows that comfort the weak?" Alara met her gaze steadily. "I have seen more than shadows," she replied, "and I am stronger than you think, Selene. Your schemes may fool others, but they do not fool me." Selene's smile did not falter, but her eyes flickered. The court murmured at the tension, sensing the growing rivalry, the power struggle that had shifted subtly during Alara's absence. Kaelin stepped beside Alara, silent yet imposing. The courtiers noticed him now, and some felt the weight of his presence. He did not speak, but his eyes warned Selene. Any move against Alara would have consequences. For days, the palace became a game of observation and subtle maneuvering. Alara applied what she had learned in the forest. She read the intentions of the court, countered Selene's whispers with quiet truth, and gained small allies who had grown wary of Selene's manipulations. Each victory was small but vital. One evening, as Alara studied the scroll of hidden passages and symbols, Kaelin approached with a soft knock. "There is something I must show you," he said, his voice serious. "Something about Selene's pact. She has sought power that even she does not fully understand. If we do not act carefully, it may consume her and the kingdom." Alara followed him to a hidden chamber beneath the palace. It was dark and cold, lined with ancient stones etched with symbols of protection and warning. Kaelin lit a small lantern, revealing a circle drawn on the floor. In its center lay a crystal, pulsing with a faint, dark light. "This is the heart of her power," Kaelin explained. "It is tied to her ambition and envy. If she succeeds, it will grow stronger and the kingdom will fall into shadow, but it can be broken, if we understand it fully." Alara felt a chill run through her spine. She had never faced such a tangible force of danger, yet she knew she could not turn away. She knelt beside Kaelin, studying the crystal, feeling its power brush against her. "Together," Kaelin said softly, "we can undo what she has started, but you must be brave, Alara, braver than you have ever been." Alara nodded. "I will face it. I will not let her destroy what is good and right." For the first time, she truly felt a connection with Kaelin, not just as a guide or protector, but as someone who saw her for who she truly was, strength and fear, hope and longing intertwined. She felt her heart beat faster, and she realized that her feelings for him were no longer something she could ignore. But even in this moment of resolve, a shadow moved outside the chamber. Selene's laugh, soft and cruel, echoed faintly through the corridors. Alara's hand tightened on Kaelin's. "She is coming," Kaelin said, his voice low, "and she knows more than we think." Alara felt a mixture of fear and determination. She had grown, learned, and seen her own strength, but the real challenge was only beginning. Selene's power, her cunning, and the mysterious force she had awakened would test Alara like never before. As they prepared for the coming confrontation, Alara understood one truth more clearly than ever. She could not rely on anyone but herself and those she chose to trust. The Count's guidance was invaluable, but her courage, wisdom, and heart would determine the outcome. The night was deep and still, yet danger hovered closer than ever. The frost in the garden seemed thicker, the shadows longer. The whispers of the past, the spirits of the forest, and the echo of Selene's laughter created a symphony of tension and fear. Alara stood at the window of her chambers, gazing out over the palace. She was no longer the frightened princess who hid behind pillars. She was someone ready to face the darkness, to confront betrayal, and to embrace the power within herself. But deep down, she knew the forest had only shown her the beginning of the truth. The mirror, the crystal, the hidden passages, they were all pieces of a puzzle that Selene would not stop at completing. And as the wind whispered through the towers, carrying the faint echo of Selene's laugh, Alara realized the final confrontation was coming. And when it did, no one, not even Kaelin, could stand between her and the choice she would have to make. The night held its breath, waiting, and the shadows behind the crown moved closer. The palace of Urindor was restless. Whispers filled the corridors, and even the guards moved with careful steps, as though sensing the tension that had grown like a storm cloud over the kingdom. Princess Alara stood in her chambers. The crystal Kaelin had shown her resting on the table before her. Its faint, dark glow pulsed like a heartbeat, a reminder of the power Selene had begun to awaken. "Alara," Kaelin said, his voice calm yet firm, "tonight it ends. Selene will challenge you openly, and the kingdom will see who is truly fit to lead. You must be ready not just to fight but to control your own heart." Alara took a deep breath. She had grown stronger, wiser, and braver. The lessons of the forest, the mirror of the heart, and the hidden knowledge in the palace had changed her. Yet the weight of the final confrontation pressed upon her chest. She could not deny the fear that lingered, fear of betrayal, of failure, and of losing herself in the process. "The court will watch," Kaelin continued. "They will judge every word, every gesture. But you have allies you do not yet realize. Trust them and trust yourself." Alara nodded. She adjusted her gown, her silver hair glinting faintly in the candlelight, and followed Kaelin to the throne room. The doors were opened wide, revealing the court already assembled. The nobles murmured among themselves, sensing the tension between the sisters. Selene stood at the far end of the room, her expression calm, her eyes gleaming with ambition. She wore a gown of deep sapphire, the color of midnight, and her posture was flawless. She raised her hand slightly, and the whispers in the court quieted. "Princess Alara," Selene said, her voice smooth and controlled, "you have hidden in shadows, seeking knowledge and allies. But the throne belongs to one who commands strength openly, not one who hides in fear." Alara stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "The throne belongs to one who understands both light and shadow," she replied, her voice steady. "One who protects the kingdom, not herself alone, and strength is not shown through fear or deceit." Selene's smile tightened. "You speak of wisdom, yet you are still a child playing with forces beyond your control. The kingdom will see soon enough whose judgment is true." Kaelin stepped closer to Alara, his presence silent but powerful. The court sensed his influence, a weight of authority that could not be ignored. Selene's eyes flicked to him briefly, as if she had not expected him to be more than a guide. The duel of words continued, subtle but deadly. The nobles watched closely, whispering among themselves. Every sentence, every gesture was a test of power. And then, a sudden chill filled the room. The crystal Selene had placed in her hands pulsed with dark light, growing brighter and stronger. The air shimmered with energy, and even the torches seemed to flicker unnaturally. Selene's ambition had awakened something beyond human understanding, and it surged toward the throne room like a silent storm. Alara felt the pulse of the dark power brushing against her. She clutched Kaelin's hand, drawing courage from his steady presence. "We can stop it," he whispered, "but you must remain calm. You cannot let anger or fear control you." Taking a deep breath, Alara stepped forward, the pulse of the crystal now nearly overwhelming. She closed her eyes and focused on the lessons of the mirror of the heart. She accepted her fear, her anger, her longing for approval, and let them guide her rather than control her. When she opened her eyes, a soft, glowing light radiated from her hands. It met the dark pulse of Selene's crystal, neither yielding nor overpowering, but steady, strong, and balanced. The court gasped as the two energies clashed in the air, shimmering like silver and shadow, light and darkness entwined. Seleni's face faltered for a moment, doubt flickering in her eyes. Alara took a step closer, her voice clear and unwavering. "Selene," she said gently, yet firmly, "this path you have chosen will destroy you and everything we love. It does not have to end this way. You can still step back and we can protect the kingdom together." The room fell silent. Selene's hand trembled slightly, the crystal pulsing faster, then slower as though it responded to her doubt. For the first time, the perfect smile she always wore faltered. Kalen moved to Alara's side, placing a steadying hand on her shoulder. "The choice is hers," he whispered, "but you have shown courage, wisdom, and balance. Whatever happens, you are ready." Selene's gaze met Alara's, and in that moment the court could see the truth. The dark power she had sought to control was beyond her, and Alara's calm, steady light was stronger because it came from heart and mind united. Selene's lips pressed into a thin line, and the crystal's glow dimmed. The storm passed, leaving a silence that felt almost sacred. Selene lowered her hand, the dark energy dissolving like mist in the morning sun. She looked at Alara, and for the first time there was no malice, only exhaustion, regret, and the faintest flicker of understanding. Alara stepped forward, holding out her hand. "It is not too late, Selene," she said softly. "You do not have to continue this path. We can face the kingdom together if you choose." Selene hesitated, then slowly, almost reluctantly, took her sister's hand. The court watched in stunned silence. The tension that had gripped the palace for months seemed to lift, replaced by a quiet hope. Kalen let out a breath he had been holding. "You have done more than survive," he said quietly to Alara. "You have redeemed the darkness with light and shown that strength can come from courage, wisdom, and heart." Alara smiled faintly, her heart still racing, but filled with a sense of peace she had never known. The court's murmurs grew softer, more approving. Nobles who had doubted her began to see her in a new light, not just as a princess, but as a leader worthy of respect and trust. Days passed, and the kingdom slowly returned to its rhythm. The frost in the gardens melted, replaced by tender buds and blossoms, as though the land itself had been waiting for this reconciliation. Alara and Selene worked together to rebuild trust and restore order, their bond slowly mending through shared purpose and understanding. Kalen remained by Alara's side, not as a shadow or protector, but as an ally and friend. Their connection had deepened during the trials, built on trust, respect, and shared courage. And though neither spoke openly of their feelings, there was an understanding between them that could not be denied. One evening, as the sun set behind the palace towers, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Alara and Kalen stood together in the royal gardens. The flowers swayed gently in the evening breeze and the air was calm, almost serene. "You have changed, Alara," Kalen said softly, "not just because of what you faced, but because of who you are. Brave, wise, and compassionate. The kingdom is fortunate to have you." Alara looked at him, a faint smile on her lips. "And you, Kalen, have shown me that strength can come from trust and courage from heart. I could not have faced this without you." For a moment the world seemed still. The palace, the gardens, the court, all faded into the background, leaving only the quiet understanding between them. Words were not needed. The bond they shared was clear in every glance, every gesture. Yet even in this moment of peace, Alara knew the world would always hold shadows. Challenges would come, decisions would be difficult, and power would always tempt and test. But she had learned to face them with courage, balance, and heart. Selene approached them quietly, her expression more humble than Alara had ever seen. "Thank you," she said softly, "for showing me there is another way. I will not forget this lesson." Alara nodded. "We are sisters. The kingdom needs both of us, stronger together than divided." Selene smiled faintly, and for the first time it was genuine and free of ambition. The court, once tense with rivalry and whispers, now watched a new chapter unfold, one of reconciliation, wisdom, and hope. Kaelin placed a hand over Alara's, a silent promise that whatever came next, they would face it together. The shadows behind the crown had been confronted, and while not all dangers had vanished, the darkness had been tempered with light, courage, and understanding. As night fell over the palace, the stars twinkled above like silent witnesses to the kingdom's trials and triumphs. Alara gazed up at them, feeling a quiet strength in her heart. She had faced betrayal, fear, and power, and she had emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to lead. The frost that had once marked the palace gardens was gone, replaced by tender buds that promised growth, renewal, and the beauty of what could come from courage and love. Alara turned to Kaelin and Selene, her sisters and allies in a kingdom reborn. The journey had been perilous, filled with shadows, whispers, and tests of heart. But now she understood that strength was not measured by fear or power alone. It was measured by courage, trust, and the ability to face darkness without losing oneself. And as the palace slept beneath the starry sky, a quiet hope lingered in the air. Urindor had survived its trials, and its princess had discovered that even in the deepest shadows, the light of heart, courage, and love could shine brightly enough to guide the kingdom forward. The dawn of a new era had begun.